SpotlightOnPodcast.com/store is the place to go to get a Spotlight On collectible for the music and arts lover in your life, or maybe even yourself. Go to SpotlightOnPodcast.com/store today. Hello and welcome to Spotlight On, the companion podcast of the Tonearm.com. Here we talk with the musicians, writers, and innovators shaping music, art, and culture. I'm your host, Lawrence Purrier. Today the spotlight shines on John Andrew Fredrick of the Black Watch. After 37 years of making indie rock, the band's latest album, For All the World, boasts an energy and vitality that surprises even John. He's a great guest. John's creative process remains rooted in uncertainty. He reads more about music than he listens to it. He draws inspiration from everything from Dostoyevsky to David Bowie. And he believes the best songwriting comes from not knowing too much about where you're headed. John talked with me about his philosophy of creative doubt, his daily ritual of playing guitar, and why staying uncertain after all these years keeps the music feeling alive. And now, John Andrew Fredrick. Before we get started, I have to say I've spent the last couple days listening to the new record. You know, I try to avoid like hack music guy phrases about music, but something that kept occurring to me over and over again was there's a real like spirit of vitality to it, a real energy. I don't really have a question around that, but I wanted to say that to you, and I'm curious how that lands. Do you recognize that? Do you feel an energy to the record? Because I feel it.
It just, that's kind of, spot on, but also a bit nebulous too, to describe it like that, because there's different sorts of energies.
Yeah.
There's an ex-student of mine who used to also play cello on occasional acoustic gigs. I had to Uber her over to mine before I asked her to be in a video with us. Very charming woman named Nareda Andrade, who's a top cellist. And she came here first, and then we went to my bandmate Andy to his house to shoot the video, which is not my favorite thing to do. I'm camera shy anyway, unless it's a Zoom meeting, or whatever, that's fine. She got to my house by 8 o'clock, and, I was so excited to see her. I hadn't seen her in years. And she just goes like, where do you get all this energy from? And in part it's coffee, of course. And I'm an early riser. People, often say like, how do you find the energy for all of these records and books and all that? I don't know. Maybe I feel like Time's winged chariot is hurrying near, the whole Andrew Marvell poem of that I'm always feeling like I'm going to die, even though I'm fit as a fiddle and drinking a delicious elixir of life right now in the afternoon. I don't know. It's one of those ineffable things. So I don't know where it comes from. I like to work. I like to do stuff, and as far as songwriting goes or writing fiction, it's just, I want to make more things and steal more bits from Beatles songs to turn into my own songs. I mean, apropos of the whole Eliot, bad poets imitate, good poets steal. I'll Scout's honor, I'll admit to stealing things wholesale from my super uber overlord masters, the Beatles. So. Yeah, that's kind of a banal answer, but whatever. And again, I'm riffing here. I don't really know where things, where the energy for that comes from. But, it's just, I refuse to be jaded about the artists that I love, the novelists and poets that I love, people that I love, and the process of making music. I have these people that I work with who facilitate it so much, Lawrence. It's not funny. I mean, a couple of the guys who are in the Black Watch now, they can drum and play piano and play bass like mad people. I don't have to have a proper band. I can pick any one of them and just go, hey, I'll play you a song acoustic and get it down. Take it away from there. Because I trust them like that. I mean, my son has done a lot of work on our stuff as well, and I just bought him a new computer because he's got it living in a house now where he can have a studio. So he'll be next up in the people who just play all these instruments and stuff, who can fill in and just go like, hey, take it away. I'm sure there'll be things that I don't I don't like, but let's go. I write every day as well. They always said that Paul Simon did. I don't do it as though, in a slavish way. They said Paul Simon, chains himself to a piano and works 2 hours a day. That would be far too regimented for me. But I just do it, because a guitar is handy and I like doing it and seeing what I can do, messing around with open tunings and different capos on the guitar. And some former bandmates have said, like, John, no matter how much jiggery pokery that you engaging, it's all G, C, D, occasional E minor anyway. Like, okay, well, don't tell anybody that.
Yeah, I dig that. I dig that.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Thanks for noticing that there's you could go so far as to say that otherworldly-ish kind of thing to stuff that we do sometimes. I mean, we like ethereal things and or happy accidents, mistakes that turn into features, serendipities, and that kind of thing. But at the same time, this is all palaver. I don't really have an answer for it for most things.
Well, it's interesting. As I was going through the discography, and I listened to anybody that's going to name an album Led Zeppelin 5 is okay in my book.
We tried for a lawsuit is the confession that I'll make, hoping the Zeppelin Trust would come after us. It would create a lot more press.
Wouldn't hurt.
I mean, we say that jovially, but, we just thought, I don't know, it made us, when the guys who were in the band at the time, the two of them claim that they came up with that title, but I was there and I know that I did. It doesn't matter because they were very clever, but we all fell about the place just laughing to think of that too. And it is our biggest selling one most likely because those stoned yearners for the Zepp, like maybe thought like, oh man,
dude, there's a new Zeppelin album. Holy shit.
Yeah, right.
I didn't even think of that part of it. That's amazing.
Oh, it's totally. It's easily the best-selling record we ever did. So maybe some of those guys with
Oh, that's so wrong.
Yeah, who knows, with Jimmy Page issue or Robert Plant issue, dungarees, are too tight and have no pockets, kind of thing. Or kept it in their collections anyway, just thinking like, oh, okay, there's some.
It's an interesting direction.
Yeah, right.
Where I was going with that was I believe that's where the cover of It's All Too Much is.
Yeah, it's a hidden track.
As I was listening to it, it conjured up for me a little bit of Guided by Voices. And what I was thinking and what I wanted to tell you was the difference was that you're capable of like firing up that and harnessing that looseness and that exciting, almost verge of breaking down that a lot of his tracks have.
Yeah.
Yet there's a polish. Like you seem to have a commitment to the recording, to the fidelity. And I'm curious about that.
I don't like super polished things necessarily, unless we want to go back to the halcyon days of recording of things that are just so pristine that they're not even funny, Steely Dan, 10cc, that kind of stuff. But for my own stuff, I don't want it to sound too very slick. My kid Chandler is such an indie rock, pavement-y kind of guy. Is just like, Dad, why don't you mess things up more often? I'm going, well, we sort of try. But I work with such great engineers and I don't get involved in that kind of stuff. They're trained for that. I've touched the faders in a studio, 5 times over the 30 some odd years. Yeah. So that's out of my purview, et cetera. But it just, they want it to sound really good without it sounding slick. So, and usually the people that I play with are either insanely talented already or very well rehearsed. Mm-hmm. I think we rehearsed for 3 months for Led Zeppelin 5 before we went into the studio. Quite a long time, even though the players, for that particular record were already, quite expert. But yeah, it's not something that a polished kind of thing isn't something that we aim for. It might just be an outcropping from, happen naturally in a way, and a mixing sort of thing as well. But it's not at the same time that we've tried to be willfully obscure, there's a website called that I can't wait to get our records because like, you guys are the most willfully obscure thing. I'm going, that's not a boon. That's not a super compliment. We're not trying to be obscure. We just are. There seems like that would be a perverse thing that might be okay for a couple years, but for the 30 plus that the Black Watch has been around, it would seem like a A madness,
What a
yes.
brand.
Well, I mean, Lawrence, I always jest. I go like, well, I never set out to be rich and famous from being a songwriter, and I've succeeded admirably both in that I'm neither. So unless so small circle of people who that's expanding like, a rock in a puddle, more and more people. And, a lot of times people have the reviews and or podcasts, will say things like, I can't believe I haven't heard of you before, to the point where, I get a bit sick of it to hear that. But it's also, it's bittersweet. It's nice to hear that somebody just goes like, wow, I'm just getting around to discovering you. So I think people who know us are the ones who have been hyped by publicists and or who are keen readers of music magazines, which I am myself. I read about music more than I listen to it. Maybe it's a time constraint kind of thing that I'd read reviews to thinking like, okay, the way that this is described is going to be my cuppa. So there you go. I don't know if that answers your question. I don't know if any of these answer the question. I think your opening salvo is, made it so that like you wanted to talk about life and philosophy and literature and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my God, you just don't wind me up like that, because I could just go forever. Go nowhere.
Well,
go nowhere forever, because I don't know. I don't know that. There's just
it's my stock and trade.
Oh, right. Good.
Something I wanted to ask you about, and I'm always conscious about, there's two things I hate to do to artists, but then I can't help myself from doing. One is psychologizing a little bit, and the other is getting into process. So I'll try to be diligent about that. But
go right ahead. I'm the hugest fan of psychology that you'll talk to today, probably, unless you've got a meeting with your shrink.
That's right. I was going to say, you don't know where I'm going next.
Yeah, I know.
Your songwriting and creative writing both strike me as, fundamentally things you do alone, ultimately, until you involve the editor, until you involve the band. And I'm curious about the role of isolation. When you were hurt, when you were younger, when you hurt your leg and you were kind of laid up for a while.
A year.
I mean,
I spent a year in bed. My left tibia broken in a football game in 5th grade, and my father had forbidden us to play tackle, but of course we mucked off to a field in an elementary school, and I broke my leg so badly that it just wouldn't heal. So I spent all of 5th grade out of school, and with a home teacher who was some doddering little sweet old lady that couldn't really teach anymore or whatever. So, and my parents, bless them, they didn't let me watch more than an hour or so of television. And this is the 60s, the heydays of your Gilligan's Islands or Rat Patrol or the Beatles cartoon or whatever.
All the good stuff.
So I read, and I was playing guitar by then. So I propped my little acoustic Silvertone on my cast that blitzed up to my hip all the way to the toes, and I got used to it. My brother and sister would have been away at school, and they're not going to be amused. Hard to play with a kid that's got a giant plaster thing on his body. So yeah, I'm used to it. But I mean, that that made me who I am. This is one of the reasons why I don't think we should ever despair, because sometimes those things, those calamities, I think I was reading Nietzsche the other day, and he made some allusion to the fact that our defeats are the things that will lead us towards illumination, perhaps not victory, but these things that have ostensibly seemed like great setbacks and giant bummers. How many songs have come from heartbreak or friendships exploding, etc., like that. So, I mean, that's a territory I've certainly mined before. But yeah, it's really quite lonely unless you dig yourself. It's like being in a coal mine that it's, frightening unless you go exploring, spelunking down to the heart of it or something. So I'm just embracing that. It's a long-winded way of saying, yes, I'm a masochist. So,
Do you remember what it was like? Do you remember that, though? Do you remember what that was like, the 5th-year-old self, like the 5th grade self? Was it sad? Was it depressing?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm still a jock. I play tennis 4 or 5 times a week. Not super aggressive, mostly doubles and stuff, and a lot of times for fun. In fact, after stopping teaching at university, I've gone back to teaching tennis to kids. So I played all sports in high school. I rode the bench on all sports in high school. But just to be on a team and just to play sports, my dad was a coach for college baseball and basketball. So, and, my brother played college football. Sports are just there in me. So to hear the cries of my friends out in the street playing touch football or shooting around was utter torture. Cause, the first week they come by like, oh, so sorry, Johnny, like, let me sign your cast. And then you don't hear from them for the rest of, for forever. But you hear them outside playing in the cul-de-sac where we lived in Santa Barbara. So, it was fun. But then, one gets used to anything. It's dangerous kind of thinking going like prison. I could survive that if that's where I'm headed, but that's not exactly the same kind of isolation. But yeah, it's something I think you kind of embrace and resent it when there was a mania maybe 20 years ago of people in LA, of course, every Swing a Dead Armadillo, everyone's got a screenplay. And sometimes you'd go to a party and someone say, oh, this is my writing partner. Like, what do you mean? Writing's not meant to be with someone. Are you joking? You're alone, partially drunk as hell, like Hemingway, or, sad as hell and, weeping onto the page. And with nobody around forever. It's not how it goes. I just thought, oh my God, how dare you try to drag somebody else into the equation. I've never tried to write really with anybody. And just as far as collaboration goes, I don't know that it's just, I have a vision of how things go. And in the same way, like with arrangements, if we've ever had a producer, it's been rare, who's tried to say like, okay, maybe we could put the verse here and the chorus there. I'm going like, I already know this song. Okay. And, in a myopic sort of way, I don't think I can even adapt to something as simple as you moving the bridge back when we wrote bridges, to another place. So, and this is another long-winded way of saying like, wow, this guy's a control freak beyond or whatever. But, it's just the way that I work and like to work and know that, seemingly, it's up to the listener, seemingly gets the results that hopefully please, or if not, oh well.
Are you able, or have you ever written from a place of happiness or contentment?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I only either write when I'm super up or super down. Anyway, I write, quote unquote, in terms of just, chord progressions or whatever. But as far as the lyrics go, it's either jubilant or in a kind of maybe manic way, either jubilant. We are getting into the psychology of songwriting too, which is fascinating, I think. Or if I'm really, really down. Or it also depends on what I've been reading. If I'm very inspired, but that could be a kind of jubilance or a kind of downer in the sense of like, oh my God, I'll never be as good as Philip Larkin or T.S. Eliot or anybody like that. But, at the same time, that realization, like, I'm going to try at least too. So,
yeah. Does your reading, it seems, it's sort of self-evident how reading might inform mood for lyrics or even turns of phrase or just ideas. Does literature manifest in the music? Does it influence sound?
I can't say that it does because I don't see how it would seep. It must seep in a dreadful word coming, Lawrence, holistic way.
You're such a Californian.
I know, I hate that word. Can I have that with some sprouts?
Nobody told me I was interviewing a hippie.
Oh my God. I'm from the 60s. I'm from another dimension. I with the caveat to saying dreadful word. But yeah, I can imagine that it does seep in there somehow, but I couldn't exactly finger how it, how could that be? It definitely, it's all over the lyrics. It's all over the lyrics, although I'd be the last person to equate them with poetry. I've had fights with people about that. I don't think that lyrics are poetry, that poetry is poetry. People have tried to have tried in the past, even former professors, to compliment me and say like, oh, lyrics are poetry. Like, no, they're not. They can be poetic, but to my way of thinking, that they're separate things.
It's interesting that need to elevate the form beyond what it is.
Yeah. What? Oh, yeah. I never thought about it like that. That's really good. Thanks. That in a way, it's diminishing them to try to, like you said, elevate them to some status that they don't need. Good lyrics are still a legitimate art form. So to call oneself, I think there's a certain pride that you should have for oneself to call oneself a lyricist, for sure.
I think I read in another interview with you that you talked about drawing from the unconscious. Are you of that school of thought, or are you of the belief that, are you a channeler? Are you an antenna?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's part very deliberate, using the years of studying poetry in graduate school and beyond.
Yeah.
To do something that's mannered and disciplined in that respect, and then other times where I just have a dream of a song that comes to me that I again channel, like you said. So I think it's I couldn't parse it for sure, but I think it's probably 50-50. Or maybe that you work them together, you get something that comes to you as if in a dream, and then you massage it around to make it suit the cadences of the melodies. But yeah, I draw a lot from the unconscious, but at the same time, it's not really from the unconscious if it's, I get inspired by having read somebody else. I mean, I think one of my profs at UCSB said, books beget books. And I think that's really true. And also music begets music, as I just made an allusion to stealing from the Beatles. There's a provenance in there, and a precedent. So, again, and all of this is just theorizing, because nobody knows for sure. This is one of the reasons why we ask these questions of people who create, I think. Try to get at the heart of something that we can't get at the heart of. I mean, there's a certain nobility, it seems to me, in trying to articulate that kind of thing, and failing, coming short in a way, or at least making do with it, thinking like, oh, okay, that's an interesting answer, that's a possibility, without it ever being the definitive thing. How's that for some pseudo philosophy?
And the ambiguity's fine, right? It doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to live in that ambiguous world is just, what Keats called negative capability. This, like he praised, maybe you've read this before, he praised Shakespeare as being the greatest at that, of not needing to know. It's like a Pandora's box thing. There's so much and a Nietzschean thing, so much you don't want to know, that wisdom comes from an unknowing kind of thing. I mean, think of the most obnoxious people in your social life are most likely know-alls, the kind of person that's got an answer for everything. Actually, that's purple, not blue, or whatever. Or it's just, I don't want to be one of those people who's got these definitive things. I want to remain in a kind of a mist.
Apropos of nothing, or slightly apropos, what you were just saying reminded me of, I remember seeing this meme online a couple of years ago. It was after Biden withdrew from Afghanistan. It was a picture of a guy, and the top said, I'm sure referring to COVID, it said, I used to be an expert in epidemiology. Now I'm an expert in foreign affairs.
Yeah. That raises the question of how that term expert has been so weaponized and bandied about too, that people declaring themselves. My kid is, obviously another, he majored in English like I did, and he's very political. I've tried to be apolitical, but it's hard in this zeitgeist.
Yeah.
But yeah, he talks about that. I remember the other month, he was just saying, it's so insane how people invoke this whole expert thing, just as mad to me of people talking about lived experience. Like, all experience is lived. It's such a nonsense pleonasm, that's for sure. It's just experience, whether you read about it or been there live. But yeah, I think things remaining ambiguous and not knowing, needing to know all the time is really beneficial for artists, not to have made up their minds about too many things. Because all of this expression is just an exploration of sorts.
Yeah.
Just to find out, to write, to find out. I never plot out any of my novels. I don't know what's going to happen. I just write to find out, create characters I think strong enough to let them live, as it were.
Oh, wow.
I think if I came up with a blueprint that this is going to happen, that is going to happen, then I wouldn't do it, because it would just be like a coloring book rather than a map.
This feels incredibly hack to ask, but again, I'm going to put my self-consciousness aside and ask you, do you ever think about your characters after you're done writing about them? Do you ever wonder where they are or?
Yeah, no, no. I mean, they're like ex-girlfriends. They have their time, and I'd love to talk to them. That's not always the case. They'd like to talk to me, but yeah, I mean, it seems. I mean, The King of Good Intentions is a three-part thing, just because, of course, the main character is in a sort of it's flattering myself to say a Nabokovian way to play a trick on those naifs who would think that's really me. Of course it's greatly fictionalized, but I had a lot to say, but I don't really think about stuff after, nor do I think about too heavily about the records that we've done. To segue back into that, I do go back and listen to them. I made them because I wanted something quite selfishly for myself to listen to. I never believe it when people say, "Oh, I never listened to my old records." Like, why did you make them then? It should have been to make something that you thought was beautiful or profound or rocking or what have you. So I don't necessarily go back to dwell on them, because it's just the pleasure is in the actual creation of stuff and the molding of the sentences to get them to where I want them to be. So they've served their purpose, in other words, and they're also for other people, because I don't like to interpret anything I've done, really, unless I'm pressed a little bit, and then I would just say I'm just another interpreter. I don't have the definitive, final say about this meant the other. I'm a great believer in the intentional fallacy of just people just going like, "Hey, what did you think?" Because I'm just another reader or listener to my stuff. And then sometimes I like what your observation was a minute ago, that I think like, oh wow, something will occur to me that somebody saw that I never saw in the songs or in the characters or in the narrative, and that's fantastic. That's great. Build, something to build on, and just it would be great if it just inspires other people to make things or to react to it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. A lot of times when I talk to artists and we dig into the work or the new work, especially in a lot of cases, they're always so grateful to talk to someone who attentively listened.
Yeah, that's probably increased in the wake of the typical overproduction where everybody has a band. Now, we used to think in the 80s, early 90s, like, oh my God, there's so many bands, too many bands, but they've just, sprawled, mushroomed exponentially. So these days to get anyone's, I had a meeting with the biggest big shot in the industry I've ever met, nicest guy in the world. This guy, Tarquin Gotch, who manages AC/DC now, and two of the guys from the Police, not Sting. And he said, "John, just release singles. What are you doing a double album here before? Like, people don't have time for that. What kind of expectations have you got on their time when, lots of bands are cottoning to this idea of just putting out singles steadily, et cetera." Just capitulating, in my mind, as a person who's got lots of records and loves the album format, etc., to just say, like, to kowtow to that sort of mentality or capitulate to it, that the modern attention span, it's shot anyway. I want to keep fighting that fight to get somebody to focus on something, even though, excuse me, a double LP is a lot to ask these days. It might not have been when Physical Graffiti came out, or your beloved David Bowie. He never made a double album, but he could have, surely. But I imagine he was under pressure enough, pun intended, to get more stuff, That just came to me. Sorry, Lawrence, that wasn't, I didn't contemplate, that wasn't, preconceived kind of thing. I'm fascinated by all the Bowie posters, because I'm a freak for the guy. I'll defend his later records, against anything to anybody there, and the middle ones too. I'm not just about Low and Hunky Dory, though those are totally dear to me. But I think he could have easily done a double album too, and people would have laughed it up. After Ziggy, if there was Zoggy and it's a double LP, people would have freaked and bought it the first day that was out there. But yeah, human nature, the nature of the listener, it seems has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have a flip phone. I'm a total Luddite. I resist technology and progress in the name of progress. It seems to me that, their names are legion, where there's just been horrible things, and all this technology, et cetera, et cetera. It's not making our lives any better at all. That's not giving us the peace of mind or tranquility somehow to sit down and listen to an entire album, and maybe that's the truth, and I don't want to face that, but I think that maybe it could be quasi combated by just going like, no, I'm going to do an album. I'm not going to release little piddling singles here and there. Make some demands of people. That's the kind of prof that I was too. People would say like, well, you got to teach to the median. You're like, no, I'm gonna drag the people at the bottom up with the good students if I can, or if they fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
Oh well. So maybe we're just aiming to be even more obscure than ever. what a wonderful self-sabotage that is.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
At least it's consistent.
I'm gonna go down firing. Yeah, for sure, it's consistent.
We'll be back with more Spotlight On and John Andrew Fredrick right after this break.
After listening to this episode, head to thetonearm.com, our online journal covering unexpected music and culture. This week on The Tonearm, author Kevin J. Hayes demystifies gonzo journalism in his book, Understanding Hunter S. Thompson. Composer Corey Reeder discusses his latest piece, Homestead, and reveals why he refuses to let centuries of classical tradition dictate his creative process. And our writers at The Tonearm pay tribute to Brian Wilson, the brilliant artist whose music is a reflection of his and our own struggles with inner demons. You'll find all this and more on The Tonearm. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to our email newsletter. That's thetonearm.com. The Tonearm, putting a needle on the cultural wax.
And now, back to Spotlight On. To circle back a little bit, you talked about, listening to the old music. And when you were talking to me about that, I had this other note. You had made a comment that each album's a reaction to the one before it. That to me is fascinating. And so again, it begs the question, what are you responding to or building on with the current double record over the last record?
Okay, that's great, because half of this new record, For All the World, was produced by the chap that did Weird Rooms, which had some wonderful English musician, another one of those guys who's a drummer, but he can also compose strings and play guitar. That Misha and I inadvertently, it was just the two of us, and my son Chandler came out to Austin to Misha's studio to do that. We didn't set out to do what's that Who record that has all the jingles in between? It's my favorite Who record the Who Sellout. We didn't set out to do something with these little musical interludes or instrumentals or quirky little radio bits or anything that we just amused ourselves, and we had little songs left over. We just thought like, okay, let's unconsciously make has happenstance, we made a quote unquote concept record, and some people saw that. I mean, it was an easy parallel to see to the Who Sell Out. So I thought, I'm not going to do anything along those lines, nothing quirky, just songs, my usual. I'm going to try to make the White Album, and I'm going to fail once again, but I've tried. So I think it was a reaction against that sort of thing of that there was a quirky is a better term than cute, even though you could say it was kind of cutesy to do that sort of thing. But this would be much more earnest, serious, collection of songs without thinking at all of trying to go genre hopping or to make something cohesive. Just here's 21 new songs, have at them. I don't know what they have to do with each other at all. If somebody sees a through line there, a motif, a theme, good for them, because there was nothing, that I planned to do, or there was no particular thing. I mean, if you look back to a record we did called Jiggery Pokery, which is the most XTC-ish record we'd done, which has a drum machine and lots of Jana Jacoby's violin and acoustic guitar like XTC's Mummer. And I think at that time that the motif would have been, I'm going to do something that's very pastoral and very XTC-like and charming and, old-timey, like that would have been a reaction to the one before, which was a lot more dissonant guitars and heavy drums and sort of thing. So it might just be, again, like mining the minutia of going like, I think in my mind that it's reaction, but other people might just say, oh, it's, it's a different, maybe a different flavor of it, but it's still the Black Watch. So I think that's the way that I maybe rationalized how I come up with stuff or try to justify, because I've had to justify too, because I've been accused of being prolific. I take it as an accusation. I'd much rather people say like, oh, you're such a genius than you're so prolific. I'm going, okay, I don't know. It seems like it's an insult sometimes when people bring that up. Although I know it's not. I'm not a paranoid person.
What's it triggering in you? What's it implying? What are you hearing?
Oh, well, because, I'm dropping so many names, but Susan Sontag years and years ago talked about this thing called prototypical American overproduction, where it just, John Updike's got 4 million novels, and so does Philip Roth, etc. Pauline Kael can't stop writing movie reviews, etc. Just stuff where other, European or UK artists seem to be a little bit more deliberate and methodical in terms of their release of stuff. I mean, you made a reference perhaps before we started rolling to Guided by Voices. Like, who could possibly keep up with Robert Pollard's, only a few absolute kooks, and bless them, for that. But I wonder what he says in relation to the mania that is constant release of stuff. Just that it seems that sometimes, as I hope, not a defensive person, it does trigger something in me where I think like, okay, now if you use the P word, then maybe I have to go on the offense and justify having done all these things. But it often comes from people who are would-be artists themselves, who just look at it and just go like, how could I even I despair at looking at your discography or whatever to go, like, how do you do that? I wish I could roll out songs like you do. And I don't know what to say to that. And I have no psychological explanation for why there have been so many records. I mean, no one stopped me. That is the simplest thing. And I'm around people whom I love as friends and collaborators, once we get into the studio, that it just seems like I'm always reacting against what I've done. And I always seem to come up with something that pleases me. So if it pleases me as a person with eminently good taste, or, that it must please other people. So, and again, I think it's, no one stopped me, so I carry on.
I have some real problems with that Sontag characterization, because I think of, certainly the beloved Beatles, right? I mean,
yeah.
Now we can't talk about what would have happened after 1971, but man, from 63 to 70,
yeah,
there weren't too many people more prolific
furiously
in any field.
creating. Yeah, absolutely, playing off each other. And they had 3 writers. Certainly George, a full-time employee of Apple Corps by the end. And then, of course, the fact that he had to fight so hard for stuff that, occasioned his greatest solo thing for me, the All Things Must Pass. But yeah, who knows? I mean, there's still boffins to this day, you might know of them, who try to cobble together the record that would have been from stuff that's on Plastic Ono Band and All Things Must Pass. And that's really interesting. Yeah, it's fun. I agree. I like it. I like it as well. Like, oh, you're gonna put it Don't Come Easy as the first song on side 2. Like, great. That's a great song,
A friend of mine does the White Album without any Paul songs. That's always funny.
How could it be?
Yeah.
How could it be? He very famously said, when he's quizzed about that, of it, George Martin saying it would have made a great single album. I remember Sir Paul just going like, come on, it's the White Album. I wouldn't. A lot of my friends whom I respect and Beatles freaks like me do say that. There's a lot of dross on that. I'm like, no, leave it. I enjoy the dross just as much. Piggies should be on that record, and why don't we do it in the road, etc.
Yeah, I can't. It's just funny. I lose my critical faculties with that band, and I'm not immune. I'm not alone in that. It's hard, it's so hard to like. What, you're gonna really question them? Like,
yeah, right, exactly. I agree.
I thought where you were going to go was that the implication was it can't possibly all be good if you're making that much.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, and again, I'm not I can't be the judge of that. Again, I mean, I would say that there's songs of ours that please me a lot more than other ones, and that seem to resonate with people, and that's great, more than other songs do. I don't think there's anything that we've ever released where I just go like, oh my God, I can't stand that song. Yeah, there's records that I favor over others. I don't like to delineate which those are because they'd hurt the people who produced them, but they've got, all of them have something that was of a time. I mean, the first one we did with the kind of St. Valentine, the first album that came out was, made by people who were very under rehearsed. And when people I played it to in Santa Barbara heard it, they might have gone like, why don't you take that money and just do a couple songs rather than this rustic 16 track kind of thing where the drummer skids a little bit off the click track. And I thought, no, I'm going to be the kind of guy who's going to grow up in public. This is a map. I would believe in the songs. This is what we did at the time. God bless us, everyone. Let's just do that. And I think maybe that's been a through line where I carried on just going like, this is where we're at now. This is what I have now. I can find somebody to put out the records, then great. But I'm not going to wait until there's this magic moment or that I have 10 songs as good as XTC's Skylarking or something like that. Somehow you could wait forever for something like, along those lines. So I think just having that spirit of going, I'm just going to do what I can now and play these songs with a great amount of exuberance, even though that's a candy word, and just see how they do and go on to the next.
I think maybe I came across this idea in the Rick Rubin book in The Creative Act. I don't know if you've read that book.
No, was it good? Did you like it?
I did. I found it quite lovely at times.
Oh, good. Really?
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah,
you can't argue with his success, that's for sure. And he seems quite articulate anyway. He's earned the right to do a book, it seems to me. What did you like about it the most?
The idea that as an artist, the best you can do is put out the work that's the best that you can do right now.
Yeah.
You don't have to make the best album of all time. You have to make the best album you can make right now.
Yeah. That's the gist of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're capable, if you put the art out into the world and say, I might make a better album in 5 years, but I'm not going to wait 5 years till I can make that album.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. So I should get the book.
Yeah, I think something you might enjoy about it is that he doesn't often just decide to speak from authority. He doesn't say, I'm Rick Rubin, therefore these are the principles I've learned. It's a much gentler, It's a very encouraging book. It's basically, the world needs more creative people. Please just be creative and stop coming up with reasons to not be creative.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah. There are an infinite number of those for lots of people who are frustrated in that respect. I'm in my circle of acquaintance, I've got quite a few of those types who you just go like, this is so good. Why don't you release it? And, or why would you second guess yourself? Why are you questioning this? This is really good. But unless they believe it themselves, they can be told by Rick Rubin himself, or you or me or anybody, how great it is. There's this something about them that seems insuperable in their character to not accept the fact that it's good. And I wonder if that's inextricably linked to sometimes people not being able to take a compliment. In a therapy session long ago, this therapist pointed to me. She's like, John, why can't you, if someone says like, this is really good, or that was really brilliant, why do you deflect it? Don't you understand that the person went out of their way to tell you that? And I think that was a hard lesson for me to learn, that I've tried to apply it these days when somebody does compliment my work, instead of just going like, oh, it'll never be as good as The Fall or whatever. But, no, just say thank you very much. And I think part of that acceptance might help people who are blocked somehow to just have the confidence just to go like, okay, thanks. Maybe it is, you're right. Thank you for noting that, and let's carry on. But then again, that'll just create more competition. So keep on not creating, everyone.
Stay out of my way.
Yeah, get out of my way.
I want to be conscious of the fact that our time together is reaching the back nine, but
okie doke.
You've worked with a lot of people. You've had a lot of people as part of the Black Watch, and I'm really interested to know what you look for in a creative partner. I can't imagine you sitting there like holding open auditions. Is that what you do? Or
I mean, we've been around long enough in LA that, I have a lot of friends and people who would come in and play bass or cello or what have you. I think mostly in the past, we used to audition, Jana and I would audition bass players by making them dance first, like, we put on some music and go like, hey, like shake your booty to this. And if they could dance okay, and they weren't too self-conscious or whatever about it, we go like, okay, well, we'll carry on and see if you can, play through the songs that you've learned. I mean, I think it alienated some people, or one or two just danced right out of waltz right out of the studio. But yeah, I think in part that. And I've had people in the band that I got on with a lot and I had more in common with than others, and a number of them are still to this day incredibly great friends of mine that just life got in the way and they couldn't play music anymore, couldn't afford to, or they had kids or what have you, or they lost their minds, they drank themselves out of a liver or what have you. So I don't want to play music with people that I don't really like as people, notwithstanding their foibles. I have to just really really like them and want to hang out with them as well, because I think it kind of shows, because eventually if you go on some long tour you're gonna end up being their enemy anyway, almost, just that familiarity breeding contempt on the road. That's been a culprit. That's been the culprit in the past, where even two really good friends who were great friends with me but great friends with each other ended up fighting on stage in a tour that we did in 2015. I mean, we turned around at North Carolina and had the longest drive, 3 days drive back. We just left the East Coast alone. It was just a catastrophe. But yeah, just that's what the road will do to people. But yet again, like relationships, one is willing to risk it all over again, just to promote the music, for sure.
Do you think that's why the bands that have been able to maintain a steady lineup, I think of U2 or Radiohead, and quite honestly, there aren't many others, don't work that often? They just can't be around each other? Because I can't imagine a band having the output that you have with the same 4 or 5 people constantly.
Yeah, no, that's inconceivable. Yeah, especially over those years. And unless perhaps we lived in a very small town where there wasn't anything else to do other than music, and that the people really had other things going, and everything wasn't riding on the success of the band. I mean, the report was that REM in their later years, they all had separate tour buses. They couldn't be in the same goddamn room unless they were on stage together. So I mean, it just, and those seemed like, wow, when early REM came along, we were all just like, wow, these guys are amazing. They seem like 4 best friends as well, being in a band and being successful. Maybe I have to, to thank the gods for not being successful, that I don't have more enemies in a way, too, that I think success is a deleterious sometimes thing. Something's going to be sacrificed for that. But yeah, it's inconceivable that it could have been the same 4 people. What's your favorite Bowie record?
Just one?
You have to pick one. What is it?
You
get to save one in the fire, Lawrence.
I really struggle. I have 3.
I know it's so unfair. This is so unkind for me to do this to you.
Depending on the day of the week. I can't believe you're going to do this to me.
I know, that's so uncool. I'm sorry. You don't have to.
No, I do. I have to answer.
I don't want to give you an existential crisis.
I'm going to spit out all 3. Hunky Dory, Low, and Black Star. I love Black Star. Black Star is...
Yeah, Black Star's... I wore out a CD of it. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. But yeah, I love Low and I love Hunky Dory too. both of those. But you didn't pick one. You're just thinking like,
I can't.
if I pick Hunky Dory's gonna be so mad at me.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, but then the thing, it's funny. I was just talking to somebody last week about the Bowie catalog. There is a lot of Bowie music that I did not like in real time.
Right.
And it's only with the benefit of 10 years or so that I get it.
Yep.
And I love that about him.
Yeah.
And I'm finally revisiting some of the 90s and early 2000s stuff. You know, I was listening to it when it came out, but I didn't love it.
No.
And now I listen to Heathen, I listen to Reality, and I'm like, God damn, if these aren't great records.
They're really good records. Both of those. Yeah. Both of those are fit.
They're adult.
Yeah.
It was a man turning into a mid and late life popular artist, like making pop culture art, but at a very high craft level, at a very high emotional and art and literary content.
Oh, the lyrics are still so by a person who reads heaps. He was a notorious keen reader. Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Yeah, that's weird that you should bring that up because they have the same effect on me that I just started collecting the later stuff during the pandemic, actually.
Oh God.
Because I think I might have left off at Scary Monsters, a great record, but it's like not getting the stuff like Outside or whatnot. But yeah, I went back to it and going like, wow, I think a lot of people must have, you and I are kindred spirits in that respect. A lot of people just didn't understand this at the time. You have to luxuriate in it and leave it alone and like forget you're not going to get it the first listen. But you got to find, I'm sure you could think back to the things that you hold dear that you didn't love it the first time you heard it, but it took a number of times to just go like, wow, this is my new favorite record. And I think the later Bowie really exemplifies that.
I had the exact opposite experience with Black Star. The first time I heard it all the way through, when it was over, I said, oh my God, he's invented a new genre of music. I couldn't believe it. I was floored.
Yeah.
I was floored by that album.
Yeah.
How about you? Do you have one?
I would have to pick, you'd be tempted to pick Ziggy Stardust, but you ruined it for yourself by listening it too much in college. I would have to say Low. Low gets me the most often, but Hunky Dory makes me crazy as well. I mean, it's between those two, but
those are two great records.
Of late, I mean, if I didn't get to choose those, I would say the one that I've listened to the very, very most would be either Black Star or Scary Monsters, just because I'm a pop guy. But yeah, I mean, I don't understand the people that dismiss a lot of those later records.
Yep.
I think there's a report that Robert Smith, in meeting him, one of his idols, drunkenly said to him, like, how does it feel not to have made anything hardly good after, after the 70s or whatever. I think he greatly regrets that he said that, such a flippant thing to Bowie, because it's so not true.
It's so not true. He was ahead of us.
Yeah, right.
And we shouldn't be surprised because he was ahead of us the whole time.
I know. Yeah,
the whole time. Let me since we're playing this game, if you don't mind, what's the best Beatles solo album?
Wow. Okay, you've turned my cruelty back on me. Good move. Well done.
You hurt me, I hurt you.
I'm gonna say Ram.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Ram. I'll have to go with Ram. That's my favorite of them all. Even though for the bulk of my Beatles worship, I've been a John guy and then more lately a George guy. So it's between Ram, Imagine, or Plastic Ono Band, and All Things Must Pass. But, I've had, vehement fights with people over Wings Wildlife. That I love that record. I think it's great. And some people just go like, how can you pop? It's got bip bop on it. And just terrible things like, oh my God, no, it has majestic melodies that are absolutely charming and beautiful at the same time.
Wow.
But yeah, that's another problematic deep catalog as well that I've tried to go to the later McCartney not too long ago, or being urged by Rob Campanella, my bandmate, who just said like, oh, you got to go back to London Town. Like, oh, London Town. I didn't like it at the time very much. And I hauled out the cassette, put it in my Jeep. It's really good. There's really good things in there. But yeah, I would say I'd keep, if I had to destroy them all but one, I'd keep Ram. That's dearest to me. Part of those of us who were devastated by the breakup, needed things to console ourselves. And those solo records really served that function. As a guy in high school with, only a handful of friends on various teams, I'm spending way too much time listening to music. It's just the thing that, that was really, I'm older than you, I imagine, I'm sure. It was just like we were devastated. So that palliated us somehow to go like, well, at least we've got bukus of blues, even though it's not very good at all, but it's still from a Beatle or whatever.
Yeah.
Why? What do you think is the best? Give me, if you don't agree, if you don't love Ram as much as I do, what would you say is your favorite one?
I don't think my answer's correct in the big picture.
No, there's no such thing as that.
But what resonates, what I listened to so much in my life since the time I discovered it as an early teenager, I listened to the George side of the Concert for Bangladesh so much.
Wow.
I love Here
Wow.
Comes the Sun from that.
Yeah.
Wah Wah.
Yeah, of course.
I love that album.
I got that album the day it came out as well. That's really, I've never heard anybody praise it that highly to put it above, Band on the Run or something, or wow.
The Here Comes the Sun on that is
okay.
just, I just love it so much. The way it's just,
Yeah.
and I love the Leon Russell medley, the Jumpin' Jack Flash Youngblood thing. Oh.
Wow. That's crazy.
I'm a nerd for that record.
You're gonna send me, you're gonna send me back to listening to it because it's been years. I don't think I have my vinyl copy anymore, but yeah, I'll go give it a listen.
Oh, it makes me so happy. I'm glad that's going to get spun somewhere on planet Earth today.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, one more quick one before I let you go. What's the last thing you read, or what are you reading?
I'm reading Iris Murdoch's The Nice and the Good. I still have the graduate school habit of reading 17 books at the same time. I'm reading that. I'm reading Spencer's The Fairy Queen because it kind of, had to sort of read it because for my orals, and then I have a tendency to read that stuff too fast, and it is a little soporific. And I've been getting back into Dostoyevsky's The Idiot, something I read not long, quite a few years ago actually, but that I've been enjoying of late. So those things, Murdoch and Dostoyevsky and Spencer.
I've never allowed myself until this year to read multiple books at the same time. I always had a real block against that. And then starting this year, I've done that. And I have to say it's increased my, how we all come up with these stupid little rules about like how you either have to finish a book or you decide you're not going to make yourself finish a book, or, all these stupid systems we have. And reading multiple books has freed me up in a way and made it, if I'm just blocked with one book, or one text is difficult or impenetrable, I can pick up something else, get through. I have found it a much more enjoyable way to read, and I wish I had been more open-minded to that approach earlier on.
Good for you. So what are you reading then right now?
Well, I almost always have a book going that relates to this work because I try to read every book if I'm going to talk to somebody. I try to at least read their current book. So I just finished reading Understanding Hunter S. Thompson because I talked to the author.
Oh, wow. Oh, great. Cool.
Really interesting, small, but
yeah, of course. I like that. I like that series of stuff. That's
a great series. Yeah. It's a very interesting reexamination of him, very clear-eyed, very modern in that he's not let off easy. It's not hero worship, but it also digs into parts of his writing that don't typically get looked at, like when he was a foreign correspondent, the stuff that didn't get anthologized a lot before he really, got gonzo. I enjoyed it. I think of myself as like knowledgeable about Hunter Thompson, and I learned some new things, and I came to grips with how problematic he is.
He's a curious case because so many of us thought that we got him when he was in the 70s, when he was Au Courant and the coming thing. And it's quite possible, even though I haven't touched his stuff for years, it's quite possible that he was done a disservice by all of us thinking that we twigged what he was on about. I think certain writers really need an exegesis from a different point of view. Like there's an Understanding Salman Rushdie that I think I should read because I've tried to read all of his novels and barely made it through halfway for all of them, just going like, oh, I'm so sick of how dazzled I am by your prose style or whatever, that I think that I would do by reading some criticism in the first and then trying to go back to it. But Hunter S. Thompson seems like that kind of guy as well, that you think you got him, quote unquote, but you didn't. really.
The heartbreaking thing is that he really did nothing of value at all after Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail.
No,
He just
no.
became lazy, alcoholic, and wanted to just get paid to go do lectures.
He gets skated on his,
And he
laurels.
blew some amazing assignments. Like, he was in Vietnam at the fall of Saigon, and he didn't want to be in Vietnam, so he went to Hong Kong and just drank.
Oh, no.
He was supposed to be with Annie Leibovitz at the Nixon resignation in the Rose Garden, and he stood her up and stayed in the hotel pool watching it on TV. Like, just stupid shit.
You wonder if he just thought that apropos of Vietnam, that maybe it had all been done and it was as much of a lost cause as that war was anyway. But it would have been great to hear if cogent thoughts about it, or his take too about those of us who love that period and hate it at the same time, would have loved to have seen his take, just because he was such a kook. Nobody like him. You can't draw parallels. You can't say Vonnegut's like Hunter S. Thompson. You can't.
Not even Tom Wolfe. None of them. Gay Talese. None of them.
No, not him too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'm going to go back to Hunter S. Thompson. Thanks for that too.
Well, I tell you one other thing about it before I let you go. The interesting thing is that the author makes the case that he's in the tradition. He's more like Mark Twain than he is modern, or certainly not postmodern. And he saw himself, his ideal novel was The Great Gatsby.
It is kind of a perfect book.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's like Roth's Goodbye Columbus. It's a perfect novella. You can change a word. Yeah, Gatsby's like that too. But that was his aim, to write something that was just a perfectly constructed work of art. Is that what you consider Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail to be?
I mean, that's what I consider Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I mean, that was
in Las Vegas.
That's a pretty damn colossal original work.
I think if you tried to teach a course in perfect works, that could be like Gatsby and Roth and that one for sure.
Well, it reminds me of what Bill Graham used to say about the Grateful Dead. He said they're not the best at what they do, but they're the only ones that do what they do.
Okay, yeah.
And that's kind of like that book. That may not be the best novel, but it's the only novel like that, or book, or whatever you want to call it.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you,
Lawrence. What a pleasure. This was great. Absolutely. Yeah, because it doesn't always turn out like this, where you very much click and someone gets your sense of humor. And thank you for doing this, for sure.
All right. Well, I love the record, and
thank you very
congratulations. Much. And I'm sure there'll be another one in 6 months.
Yeah, actually, there is one. We've just signed to Nick Solomon's label, Blue Matter, the guy from the Bevis Fraud. Do you know the Bevis?
Yeah.
He's going to put out the one that we've just finished as a follow up to this. Hopefully not too close to it, but sometime early next year. So
wonderful.
And again, maybe we can talk after that one. But
I would welcome that.
Okay.
All right.
Great to meet you.
Mazel
See
tov.
you.
Be well.
All right. Take care. Cheers.
Thank you so much, John Andrew Fredrick. And as always, thank you for listening to Spotlight On. Spotlight On is executive produced and hosted by me, Lawrence Purrier. We're produced and marketed by Michael Donaldson. Editing and sound design is by Terry Grant. Our theme music is by Q Burns Abstract Message. Thank you so much for supporting our work. Please rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts, and then visit us online at spotlightonpodcast.com. While you're there, explore the free episode archive. And for more interviews and writings from me and a diverse array of contributors, check out thetonearm.com. Thanks for listening, be safe, and stay in touch.